Coaches, are you ready to revolutionize your game preparation? For the past 5 seasons, coaches across the nation have been using the ultimate scout team game changer, the Coachpad. Imagine this: no more scrambling on weekends to prep scout cards, no more fumbling with paper and binders. Whether you're drawing your cards digitally with a computer program or sketching them by hand, the Coachpad is your all in one solution. Picture yourself on the practice field, effortlessly managing your scout team or standing on the sidelines during game day, syncing adjustments from the press box to your coaches on the sideline and back. With the coach pad, you can clearly see your scout cards even in the brightest sunlight. No more squinting or dealing with the wind blowing clear vinyl sleeves everywhere. This offseason, take your coaching to the next level. Get your coach pad today at thecoachpad.com and gear up for a winning season ahead.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gap Downbacker podcast. Today we have Coach Holzer here from Northern High School out there in Maryland. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How's everything?
Good. I mean, for those who are turning in, like we just spent, I don't know, 20 minutes just BSing about various things, including poorly run NFL franchises. So this will be interesting. So you mentioned a little bit before we came on, but I mean, how'd y'all season go?
It was successful. We had some ups and downs with a young team, but we went back. We hit the state semifinals last year with a bunch of seniors, lost to a really good Linganore team. And then this year coming in, we were kind of like, we're breaking in a new quarterback. We're breaking in 5 new linemen, offensive linemen. We got a new running back. We got 3 new receivers. It was like, this could go really bad or it could go really well. We'll see. But we ended up in the regional championship game. Would have been back in the state semifinals if we managed to win that one. The way it played out, the team that we lost to in the regional finals, we lost 21-14. Ended up running away with the state semifinals and then just laying the smackdown in the state final game too. So, we were right there with a young team. So, we should be pretty solid coming back next year.
Good. Like I said, I kind of know how that feels. Like, I mean, we were watching for in Ohio here, we have a school that's at like 68 straight wins. And
Wow.
in the state, I mean, in the region finals, they win a closer game. I'll phrase it that way, like by
Okay.
21-28. They ended up winning the state title. They won their game by 77 points. So,
Holy cow. Right.
like it was a joke online. Well, the state title was decided this week, like 3 weeks before the state game. Like, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, like first time about we talked about a little bit of this off air. Like, I mean, me and you've talked about various passing concept, mostly run and shoot over the year, and it seems to be a return to a point to the shoot because I mean, Rolo just got back into college as an analyst at Cal, uh, and Coach Smith, who used to be his OC, is now the head coach at Ohio. It seems like, and obviously Coach Chang out there in Hawaii has a full return to the shoot this year. I mean, had their most wins in like 4, 5, 6 years. I mean, they were massively better. And that was with like a redshirt freshman quarterback. I mean, everything we know is cyclical in football. I mean, but like, what do you think the cause of some of the shoot stuff is? Is it because there's other choice concepts? Is it just going back, it's cyclical, or is it just kind of timing? What do you think?
Well, I think the shoot has been successful everywhere it goes. And people have different versions of it. Like there was, when Tiger Ellison started, there was like Red Fought and those guys and Manny Matsakis that ran it more like with the gangster pass and all that stuff. And then you have Mouse Davis who took it a different direction. Sorry about that. So I think the shoot is flexible because Manny's run game is based off the jet sweep or the pop out, he calls it. And that was a big part of what that tree did. The Red Fought tree was, you had the triple option married with the run and shoot pass concepts. And Mouse took it a different direction, which, June Jones and all those guys follow, which is kind of what we follow more so, where they're throwing a lot with the choice routes and things like that and the go route and all that. And it's got a little bit more West Coasty feel to it. There's some more of those, like the Georgia, Nebraska player in there, Texas and Houston. And June was listening to another podcast, and he had talked about how they were incorporating mesh from his time with Hal Mummy. So I think the good thing, I think the shoot is very versatile because you can run a seam read with a tight end in the game. You can run backside choice or the backside of the gangster series, with a tight end in the game or with a tight end wing to the front side. Like when we went to state semifinals in 23, we used a lot of double tight concepts with tight end wing, but we were still throwing choice. Like we weren't throwing go route as much. We were throwing a lot of choice route, and we were throwing a lot of divide with the two tight ends running the seam and the divide route. So I think it allows you to be flexible, and I think it allows you to have answers for everything. And I think right now, one of the answers to stop the shoot was like pattern match and zone blitz, and I think it just took time for the run and shoot to coaches to adapt to what the defenses were trying to do to it. And once you caught up to it and figured it out, like the podcast I was listening to, again, to go back to that one, Coach Jones was talking about how the corner route, when he was playing the Cowboys when he was still in the NFL, and how they brought out cover four for the first time, four deep, and they had to adjust the angle of departure of the corner route, and how that became then incorporated into how they taught the smash or the hook or the delay, depending on where you come from, like which brand of the shoot you follow. So that, I think it's just, morphing and figuring out what stays in the playbook, what doesn't. I think that's kind of the beauty of the run and shoot, is like you can take it the direction of like a service academy, run triple, but run switch and streak on the backside as your play actions, or you can go Mouse Davis, or you can try to run Manny's triple shoot type stuff. And you've got a lot of different options and a lot of flexibility within the run game and the screens and things like that. Then you can kind of make the run and shoot your own and adapt it to your players.
Okay. Yeah, and like you mentioned choice there, like, and kind of make it your own, or like your own variation. Like I know some of the June Jones tree or Rolo tree, however you want to look at it, it's all the same tree really.
Yeah.
Run a lot less choice than they used to. How are you keeping it alive? How are you running it? Because like I said, talking to some of them over the years, like I think part of it is the pattern matches you kind of talked about. I also think it's just part of with the prevalence of certain concepts. There's been it just moved in a certain direction because college is different. Let's be honest, college and
Yeah.
high school, our hashes are different, recruiting, blah blah, all that. So how are you attacking things with choice, and how are you keeping it alive?
Choice for us is a huge concept. Like I think I just pulled some clips before we got on, and I think I found like just a quick huddle search was like found 75 clips of choice just from 23, or something like that. Maybe it's 23 and 22, but it was a lot. So we're keeping it alive by varying the formations, varying the motions and things like that. So you'll see us line up in straight up trips to the, 3x1 to the field, throw choice to the boundary. You'll see us line up in 2x2 motion to the field, throw choice to the boundary. You'll see us line up in formation into the boundary, throw choice to the field, and just reduce the split of the choice runner. You'll see us with a tight end trip set. We're throwing choice to the boundary. So I think what we've done is we've done a good job, like Matt, varying the formations and not just sitting in 10. And there's nothing wrong with it. When I was in college, we ran choice. We called it Colorado, 60-61 Colorado. And we ran choice out of a 10 personnel, 3x1. We did have balanced choice where it's 2x2, but the main way it was drawn up in our playbook with choice special, choice switch, and choice change, I think it was at Hofstra, was all 3x1 concepts with the choice into the boundary. So I think we've just taken that aspect and we've dressed it up a little bit with motions and shifts, just like they're doing, like, all the popular guys like Sarkeesian and those guys are doing with inside zone, with cutting the backside, with inserting the backside, with their glance route or the out cut and all that stuff, and they're dressing it up with orbit motions, return motions, and all that stuff. So I think that's kind of the philosophy we've taken to dress up the choice.
Okay, like I said, just I was curious because again, I forget who, I don't even remember who I talked to. He's now the OC at San Jose with Ken.
Yeah, Stutzman.
Yes, Stutzman. That's who I was
Yep.
talking to about it. That was back when he was still with I think he was at Utah. I think it was either while he was still at Washington State or when he went to Utah Tech
Yep.
after that whole thing happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was one of the things he talked to me about how like Roll just didn't really call choice that as much anymore, just
Yeah.
for reasons. So,
Yeah.
um, like I said, I mean, is that a day one install for you guys, choice, or like at what point do you get to choice in your like progression?
That's day two for us. So day one is the streak, the switch, and the divide.
Okay.
That's still day one. So day two is go and choice because go and choice work off each other. It's basically the way we do it is I kind of look at it the way Coach Spence, Rob Spence was our offensive coordinator when I was for 4 of my 5 years at Hofstra, and then Dave Brock was the offensive coordinator for a little while. And the way I had understood it, and then from talking to people after college was when that boundary safety hangs to take away the choice, that's when you work the go route. When he moves to the middle of the field and they start poaching the front side, that's when you work the choice. And that's kind of like our basic thought process is as soon as as soon as Waldo moves to the field, we're gonna go choice. And as soon as Waldo goes backside, we're gonna go route. So I just tell the quarterback, where's Waldo? And we actually have a package play where I just give one hand signal and they have the option to the quarterback knows he's putting trips to the field. He's either calling go choice, he's throwing uncovered, or he's running in, or he just hands it inside zone because we got a light box.
Okay. Since you mentioned Waldo, do you have to explain to your kid what is where's Waldo? Like,
Yeah. We have a PowerPoint I go through. I'm like, all right, here's the boundary safety. Like, no. And then I'll actually take film clips and I'll like of opponents that we play, and I'll be like, all right, you take. Oh, I give them the point, the little red laser point. I'm like, point Waldo, and they go through. I go next clip, go boom. We just keep going through until ad nauseum until they're like, Coach, we get it.
yeah. I mean, again, you guys don't run a lot in the shoot, but when you got to be able to read stuff correctly. I mean, I think everybody I've ever listened to, that's been their way. Whether it be Chang, Rollo, Stutzman, like anytime I've either listened to them on something else or talked to them personally, like that's kind of why I'm excited because again, I grew up a big Hawaii fan, just
Yep.
because of Colt Brennan, Ryan Grayson Mullins, Devon Bess, Ne'aloa, and like now that Smitty's over here at OU, and now that he's in charge, I'm going to be interested to see how much of this he actually, I don't know, puts in. Like I said, again, they've been such a big, to your point, talking about inside zone, or such a big inside zone team for so long
Yeah.
that I don't know. I mean, you don't want to do like wholesale change what's worked either. I
Yeah.
mean, especially with Parker Navarro, who's just I mean, a quarterback with really a fullback in a quarterback's body. It's like,
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, so, but you also mentioned go there. I mean, what does that kind of progression and development look like? Like choice, I think is, I mean, I've ran some choice in the past. Choice is not a rocket science concept by any means. I mean, I mean, at its core, it's a one-on-one route if you're looking at the one-on-one side.
Pretty
Um,
much.
but like it goes a little more intricate, and then and obviously it makes sense to put them in both the same day just because of you're teaching a lot of the same route conversions or reads, or at least when you break up your receivers on how to progress through that. I mean, what is choice not choice go entail for you guys?
Yeah, go's pretty detailed. If you're going to be good at it, like a friend of mine down here, we're in the same conference. And he just won the state title this year in the smallest class, in the second smallest classification. They're a lot smaller than us, but we play every year, and they got the better of us this year. They had you talk about a fullback and a quarterback's body. They had a kid at quarterback that he's going to the Naval Academy, and I was just like, I'm just watching this kid on film, and I'm like, can we tackle him? I'm like, they're going empty quarterback inside zone like half the game with cutters and inserts. And I'm like, and this kid's just like Le'Veon Belling the line of scrimmage. And then all of a sudden he just comes flying through at 215 pounds, and I'm like, we may not be able to stop this kid. So we got to score. So, but no, he was talking about like, putting in the go route and things like that. And what I tell people is that it's if you're going to do go route, like go route is not the route to put in if you're just going to dabble in run and shoot concepts, because the it's not the traditional seam read. I actually, some people call it a seam read when they talk about the go route. We call it something different so that our receivers understand that this is a different deal by number two. It's not a seam read. Yes, you're making conversions and things like that, but we call it an up read. So we're trying to clear the under coverage just like usual, but they have a rule that under coverage must be cleared through the outside shoulder unless the under coverage defender expands. And under coverage means outside linebacker for us or down safety, whichever. If Mouse Davis always talks about under coverage, so when I was in college, we called it under coverage. It's just what we call it. But anyway, talking about like the go with that is, when you're running a seam read, it's basically you're pushing up the hash, and if that under coverage guy gets a little bit outside the hash, you can slip them inside and restack on the hash, on the high school hash. And we tell them to run the outside edge of the high school hash on the streak switch and divide. On go route, we tell them that on zone coverage, you're going to push for that outside shoulder and you're going to continue pushing for it unless he expands 2 yards outside of that hash, which may not sound like a lot, but in the passing game, 2 yards is the difference between a tipped ball and a completed ball, sometimes. And we tell them that they have to push, push, push and get that guy to expand and get through his outside shoulder and only slip it back inside if he expands 2 yards outside the hash. And we always tell him too that as soon as you clear the under on seam read, once we clear the under coverage, we're looking for safety. We're looking for that safety to get our route conversion. When we clear the under coverage on the go route, our head and eyes are snapping, looking for potential back shoulder throw right away in the hole. Like you always watch the Hawaii teams when they were really running, when they were really rolling. You saw that when you saw them run go route, you saw that ball get drilled in the hole like 8 to 12 yards deep, and it back shouldered them and turned them around like they were an outside receiver. That's kind of what I was talking about. Is like we drill down on that a lot. Like we'll make the conversions and stuff like that, but we are looking for that backside hole, that backdoor hole shot behind the under coverage. So it's a little different than just teaching a seam read. That's kind of like the long and short of it.
Okay. Okay. Now, like again, I mean, how are you you can break this up how you want because we're again talking go and choice. When you're that practice day when you're installing it again, by this point, a lot of your kids have run it at this point. You're pretty far into it. But what does that initial practice day look like when you put in go and choice? Because that again, me and you can sit here and talk the semantics of it, but if people don't know how to install it or practice it, it doesn't matter. So how are you practicing go and choice, especially that first day when you're installing it in the fall?
So this is this is a nice thing, I guess. The nice thing about go and choice is that go route, you can take the outside receivers out of the drill because they're involved in it with cover two because of the outside hole shot. But when you're initially teaching that those reads by the slot receiver, what we'll typically do is I'll take the slot receivers and we'll go to one area of the field. My receivers coach John Marlowe will take another quarterback, and he'll take the outside receivers. And his arm is still good. He was a baseball player, so we'll put the Z receivers on the right, the X's on the left, and they'll work choice route against the corner. I'm down on the other side of the field with our slots working against every possible zone, type zone combination we can think of with the slot receivers. So that's kind of how we drill it once we get into training camp. And like you said, with the varsity kids, we can go right to it because they've done it in the off season. So but what we'll do when we initially get them for 7-on-7, when we're allowed to start doing it in Maryland, which is a whole different topic about how dumb our rules are in public school in Maryland, compared to the other states. But so when we are allowed to do it, we'll go out on the field and we will walk through, like we'll walk it. So we'll teach it on the chalkboard, we'll watch it on film, then we'll walk it, we'll jog it, and we'll run it. And we'll start out versus cover three, like you hear all the time. Then we'll progress. I progress after that to cover four because it's very similar with the read on the alley defender. or the under coverage guy, and then we'll go to cover two, and then we'll go to our man conversions after that, and then cover zero. So what we'll do is we'll walk through it, and we'll have that flat defend. We'll have the under coverage guy. We'll have an inside backer. We'll have Waldo back there. We'll have the field safety. We'll have the corner, and we will just walk through. And I'll be sitting back there, and I'll give the defenders, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, and they will walk through where they're supposed to be in their responsibilities. And our receivers will walk through and activate their conversions. And when we do the walking part, we take a tennis ball, and the quarterback will throw the tennis ball to who he thinks is going to come open. Then we start jogging it, and we bring a Nerf ball out, and we throw the Nerf ball. And then when we start running it, we bring the regular football out, and we throw the regular football. But that's kind of how we do it. Is we'll put them out there, and we'll actually just sit there and continuously change the coverage look so that the kids have to read it on the run, and they don't get locked into just one look. Because a lot of times what I found myself doing in the past was we would go out there, and it would be, when we first taught it, it would be all cover three, then all cover two, and our kids were getting we're almost on rinse and like mindless robots. They were doing it over and over again. They weren't thinking. So what I've gone to is more like in the off season, changing the look around instead of just having a cover 3 day, which we'll do when we initially teach the play. But once we get really into it and we get on the field, we'll change the coverage constantly so that our kids have to think and they can't just be robots and watch. Because the one thing that always drives me nuts is when we've got a line of slot receivers. I call cover three, we execute it, and then the kid behind isn't paying attention because he knows it's cover three, and he comes out, and I'll change the coverage on him without telling him, and then he'll run the cover three conversion. I'll be like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, it's not cover three." So to keep the kids engaged, I'm constantly switching the coverages between, when we're working zone between 2, 4, and 3 versus man, inside man, inside man, outside man, or inside man. And then blitz is a whole different deal for us. We don't mess with that in 7-on-7. We mess with that once the season gets here. So that's kind of how I teach it. And teach it that way also to keep 15-year-old brains engaged. Like college kids, you could probably just work cover three because they're a little bit older, more mature, and they're scholarship players, or at least, in Division III, they're like very serious football players because, a lot of these Division III guys, they're just a little too short, a little too slow to play Division I, so like they're as heavily, if you go to Mount Union or Salisbury or whatever, you're as invested in football as a lot of these kids are at the Division I level. It's just, there's a difference in your 40 time. So, but you can get them to pay attention and learn. Whereas the high school kid, you got to do things to keep their attention. I found that switching the coverages and keeping them on their toes is what helps. But that's kind of how we do it. I don't know if it's the right way, but I know from other run and shoot guys, it's heavy group work and changing coverages and making them adapt on the run as opposed to just like putting one slot receiver out there with one defender and letting him run and not being aware of everything and his surroundings.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier the board work with the quarterbacks. How much board time or film time do you do with your receivers as well? I mean, because obviously, again, sounds like for the most part with the quarterbacks, at least the board and the Where's Waldo, you're treating it like love. Like you listen to Stutzman or Chang or Jones and how they spend time developing their quarterbacks, especially in the classroom. Because again, you can only throw so many in a day before your arm says, I'm done. But again, the mental reps are important. How much are you doing that with your receivers too, as you install? Not it doesn't necessarily be going choice, but just your passing package in general.
Yeah, we spend quite a bit of time. I know with quarterbacks this year, a big difference for us. He threw our junior quarterback who had never started in our system before threw for I think 4,100 yards this year, and 45 touchdowns. And I attribute the big change was not only were we doing the board work, not only were we doing the film and the on-field stuff, but we got a VR system this year, and I think that helped tremendously. Like the kid, he loved it. He was in there all the time, half hour before lifting starts during the summer. Coach, do you have a new playlist for me? And I'm like, no, I don't have a new one, so I think that made a big deal. I think for the receivers, we spend a lot of time on the board with them too, showing them defenses, teaching them coverage so that they can identify, they can identify the triangle that they're seeing in front of them with the two high safety shell. Are they getting, they can, like our receivers can identify, they can look at the relationship in a two high shell and understand, just like a quarterback would, that when the outside linebacker is tucked inside of that field side safety, they know that they're more than likely getting some type of cloud look because of the alignment and the relation to the relation of the safety and the backer. And they know when that backer tucks out and the safety tucks in, it's more than likely going to get some type of quarters or things like that. Or they know that when it's a heavy cover three team, that when those safeties we get on different levels are more than likely getting strong side rotation, or opposite, you're getting weak side rotation. So those are all things that we teach the secondary, because they have to be able to read those things and read those defenders and understand what they're doing so that they can attack them. Because a lot of what happens in the run and shoot is, instead of full field reading like a West Coast team, you're really reading only certain receivers, and you're going through a progression, 1, 2, 3, like on choice. You're looking at you're looking at your choice route runner, and you're throwing the choice route. If you don't like it, you get off and find the seam read, and then you're down to the drag. Or if it's man, if it's zone, you're going choice, seam read, go vertical read on the outside, down to the drag. And but the receivers are all reading coverage. The quarterback is looking through his progression on receivers. So that's kind of what we do a lot with teaching them, how to identify coverages, man, zone. Like, our kids understand what I say when I say, hey, and they come to the sideline with go route, and we're seeing a heavy man coverage team. I'm like, hey, was it inside, inside, outside, inside, or outside, outside? They go, coach, inside, inside. I said, okay, what was your conversion supposed to be? Why'd you do this? Oh yeah, coach, I forgot. So they understand that stuff.
Last question I have for you, because I don't want to ruin a good podcast, and we've had a really good podcast so far, is like, this is a question I'm starting to ask people because I'm curious, especially just for a variety of reasons that I'm not going to get into right now. But what does your pregame look like? How do you structure pregame? Like, what is, like, in again, everybody's a little different on how they handle that, but from the time you guys get there to kickoff, what does that kind of look like? And more specifically, because obviously you run the run and shoot, what does your offensive time look like as we get more in
Okay.
depth?
That's the $1 million question I'm trying to solve with my kids, because like we are notoriously slow starting at Northern High School, and I'm just trying to figure out, is that us? Is that our pregame routine? What we settled on for this year was a very short and truncated routine, almost like Kevin Kelly-ish, where I remember listening to him talk, and I haven't talked to him in a few years, but when I did, I remember him talking about, it's 45 minutes. He gets there 45 minutes before the game. If it's an away game and the bus gets there early, he'll actually have it drive around the parking lot and not let the kids off the bus. And one of our best offensive outputs this year was actually, we're going down to one of our rival high schools, and it's supposed to only be like an hour drive. And we hit traffic near one of the military bases, and it turns into like, we've got 40 minutes to warm up and we got to go. And I'm screaming at the kids, get off the bus, let's go, let's go. And then we go out in the field and we proceed to put, 49 points on the board. Like, our quarterback runs for 135, throws for 375, and we just absolutely laid the wood to this team. And, I'm like, all right, well, maybe there's something to it. And then, so we started going to that shortened time frame where we're going to try to take the field with about 45 minutes to go. We're going to go right into, they like doing a dynamic flex, which we never do in practice. So I let them do it just because the kids asked. And I'm not fighting that battle. So I told them they got 2 minutes, figure it out. So they line up on the goal line and they do their little dynamic flex. And we go right into 5 minutes of defensive individual, because we're like a lot of high schools. Our kids go both ways. So they go right into 5 minutes of defense. Then we jump into our offensive warm up, which for our skill guys starts with settle drill. I stole that air raid drill. I think it's a good drill. So we do it real quick. They catch 2 balls in settle drill. Then we jump into line catching, which if you're a run and shoot guy, or you've listened to like AJ Smith and any of those guys talk, they've explained the line drill, with the perfect pass, the high, low, and behind pass. And then we go into pat and go. And then we try to knock that out in 7 minutes. And then we'll go right into 7-on-7 for about 7 plays. Then we'll go into team offense for about 7 plays, team defense for 7 plays. We'll punt 2, we'll kick 1 field goal, and then we'll get off the field and go in the locker room.
Sure.
So, and if it's an away game and we can't get into the locker room, we just go into, just like everybody else does, we go hide in a corner somewhere for a while.
I get you. Okay. So coaches, want to check out sponsors, all that lovely jazz. Like, share, subscribe, comment, algorithm crap. And then check Coach out. Not only other stuff he's been on for me, but I know he's been on other podcasts and other things. Check him out. Give him a follow on Twitter. I'll put all that stuff. Put his Twitter in the bio. But again, you type in his name and put football after it in Google or on YouTube, you'll find him. Otherwise, that is another episode of the Gap Down Backer podcast.